Hello. Today we're going to talk about what Juneteenth and writing have in common. Stay tuned. Hi, my name is Angela. If this is your first time here, welcome. And if you are returning, welcome back. So, as I stated, we're going to talk about Juneteenth and writing. And I'm not here to teach you about Juneteenth. There are many other videos out there about that. But as I enjoyed the holiday yesterday, yes, I did, I got a sense that there was a little bit of confusion going on. And I just wanted to give my take on that as a writer and how looking at Juneteenth has helped me to look at writing in a kind of a different light. Okay, so although I am not here to teach you really about Juneteenth, I do want to give some basic foundational information. And you can, like I said, go out on the internet, you can go to your public library. There are several resources that you can, look at to get everything you probably want to know about Juneteenth. So, April 9th, 1865, the Civil War in America ends. June 19th, 1865, is when we have General Granger get to Texas and inform all the people there enslaved that they were actually free. That is where Juneteenth comes from. June 19th, and they shorten the name to get Juneteenth. However, this is not when all formerly enslaved African Americans really became free. We really did not become free until December 6, 1865. That is the date when the 2/3 actually ratified. And so December 6, 1865 is the actual true date of freedom for formerly enslaved African Americans in the United States. Now, that being said, what is going on with having these Juneteenth celebrations if it's not the correct date? And I want to tell you that the reason why that date is important is because of the simple fact that Texas was the first state to actually recognize the end of slavery as a state holiday. Eventually, Juneteenth becomes a national holiday. And this is why we celebrate the freedom of formerly enslaved African Americans on that date. Now you may be saying, okay, but what does that all have to do with writing? Well, let me tell you. When you look at Juneteenth and you say they don't even have the right date that they're celebrating their freedom from being enslaved. And I will implore you to recognize that just as we do in writing, when we look at something and it has symbolism, that is what Juneteenth is. It is the symbolic day of freedom for African Americans in the United States. It's symbolic. That's what it is. Okay? And so it is a date that at least most Black people would say, hey, we've been celebrating this since 1865. And that's the date we're going to go with. Another very symbolic event in the lives of African Americans is the symbolism of the door of no return. The door of no return is several places that you can travel to in Africa, where for Africans being sent over to the Caribbean to the Americas. It was the last place, last door they would have gone through before they were taken from Africa. And so that also represents symbolism of where people went through. And so when you're doing your writing, you may have some symbolism, and especially in fiction, you have a lot of things that are symbolic of other things. It does not mean that that is the exact date, exact event, that type of thing. But is it important? Absolutely. Absolutely, it is. And so when people are celebrating Juneteenth, they are celebrating the news of formerly enslaved African Americans being freed. When people go to Africa and they visit places like Buns Island, they are using that as a symbolism to show that this is the last place that one of my ancestors may have traveled through before they were taken. So don't get hung up on this is not exact, because I'm here to tell you, as you write, and especially if you're a African American writer, you should know by now that many things we don't have exact dates on. Many events we don't have exactness to it, but we have the symbolism behind it. We have the philosophy behind it. We have the empathy behind it. And that is what you need to focus on. So, as a Black writer, or as a writer who is trying to get the truth even within fiction, what do you do? Do you dismiss what you know has happened because you don't have exact dates? Or do you distinguish that information? And I would implore you to distinguish the information. It is about the core root of what has happened. We write about emotions. We write about things that other people may wonder about, that we may have gone through, or that we know about because we've seen, our loved ones go through it. That is what you do. Fiction is not black and white. African American history is not black and white. There are some gray areas, a lot of gray areas. But it is our job, especially as writers, especially as historical fiction writers, of which I am one. It is a challenging task, but it is not an impossible task. And again, if you are going to be doing this type of writing where you are speaking about any group that has history, that has no exact dates, you may only know half the story. What we do as writers is to try to discern and try to get that kernel of truth out. We try to share that, and that's what needs to happen. So before you get hung up on, dates, like, we do know the Civil War ended April 9th, 1865. We know this. We do know that people in Texas were told on June 19th that, hey, you are not free. We do know that freedom of formerly enslaved African Americans was ratified on December 6, 1865. But we also know a whole bunch of other things. And when you leave out parts of this story, you are doing a disservice to your readers. You are doing a disservice to your ancestors. You are doing a disservice to your writing. Don't get hung up on the minutia, the little things that are not always clear. When you write historical fiction, I am one of those writers that believes that you should be as exact as possible. You're not going to discount that the Civil War didn't end April 9th, 1865. It absolutely did. You know that. Don't play games, okay? But the stories that you haven't heard, the stories that ring true, the information that we are just finding out because somebody's family had it tucked away for centuries. Don't discount that either. I normally will do a shout out to one of the wonderful authortube channels I enjoy, so that hopefully you may enjoy and learn from them as well. But today, in honor of Juneteenth, I am going to be shouting out some authors I feel deserve recognition that may have not have gotten recognition when they were living, or not as much as I believe they should have gotten. And I hope you will take this list and read some of their work and enjoy them as much as I have. Also, one of my favorite poets is author Paul Laurence Dunbar, and I just want to read a poem that he wrote called Emancipation, which is kind of recognizing um, what he felt about Juneteenth. Emancipation. Fling out your banners, your honors be bringing. Raise to the ether your praise. Strike every chord and let music be ringing. Celebrate freely this day of all days. Few are the years since that notable blessing raised you from slaves to the powers of men. Each year has seen you, my brothers, progressing, never to sink to that level again. Perched on your shoulder sits liberty, smiling, perched where the eyes of the nations can see, kept from her pinions, all contact defiling, show by your deeds what you're destined to be. Press boldly forward, nor waver, nor falter. Blood has been freely poured out in your cause, lives sacrificed upon liberty's altar. Press to the front, it were craven to pause. Look to the heights that are worth your attaining. Keep your feet firm in the path to the goal. Toward noble deeds, every effort be straining, where the ambition is food for the soul. Up, men and brothers, be noble, be earnest. Ripe is the time and success is assured. Know that your faith was the hardest and sternest when through those last ringing days you endured. Never again shall the manacles gall you. Never again shall the whip stroke defame. Nobles and freemen, your destinies call you onward to honor, to glory and fame. And so I just wanted to give my opinion about Juneteenth. I had a lovely day. It's refreshing to see so many smiles on my community's faces when a lot of times there aren't any smiles. Okay. And that's just being honest. And so it was a joyous day. It's not just one day. Juneteenth is not just one day. It is symbolic, okay, of the freedom of formerly enslaved African Americans. And you need to step outside the box on many things. And your writing will be improved. Again, thanks for joining me. If you like to hear honest opinions and you like to write, you like to read, come back, join me, have a great time, and I'll see you next time. Bye.